In the last video, we talked about Azure Web Apps. It's a PaaS service for hosting your web applications, and the compute resources that you used to create for the traditional approach is no longer needed for these services. And this is all taken care by Microsoft for you when you spin up Azure Web Apps. And we call it App Service Plan. This is what we understood in the last video. So we don't need this. That's why there is a cross. When we deploy a web app, we needed the compute power, and this compute power or compute resources gets created at the backend on the Azure data center and managed by Azure for you. Okay, and this is called App Service Plan. Okay, so today's topic is App Service Plan. App Service Plan. Okay, so this is our today's topic. Until now, you guys are okay. So let me, yeah, all good right now. So if I have to say or reply what is App Service Plan, we can simply say App Service Plan defines a set of compute resources for your web app to run, and you cannot create web app without App Service Plan. Okay, because somewhere the compute resources are running on which your web app is actually hosted. All right, now it depends what kind of service plan you have opted for and you have chosen as per application requirement. So is the relevant compute power or relevant abilities of that plan. All right, and it is not like you can only host a single app in your app service plan. You can go one or more apps can be configured to run on the same computing resources or in the same app service plan. All right, it's not like there is only one app in this particular uh, service plan. Let's suppose this is the service plan. This is your app service plan right here, created resources for you where your web apps are deployed. It could be more than one. Okay, web app 1, web app 2, or anything like that. For example, you can also run your Azure functions here on app service plan, or your what to say that I just forgot the name. All right, like things like that, the PaaS services that require the compute resources that can be run on app service plan can be hosted in the same app service plan, just like Azure functions. Okay, or web jobs. That's what I was forgetting the name of. Web jobs. So these all could be deployed or run on the same app service plan. So in today's topic, we are trying to understand app service plan to the depth. Okay. All right. So in order to choose the app service plan, we need to select certain things, and we'll talk about those things one by one. Just like any other resources in Azure, app service plan needs to be deployed in a region, right? And we need to select number of instances, VM instances, VM sizes, pricing tier. These things are required to create an app service plan as per requirement. Now, pricing tier is something very important. That's why we need to understand the pricing tier first. Okay, a lot of questions come from pricing tier and raises, or when you deploy an application, these things comes in the picture first and the last, because cost is always important. So if I talk about pricing tier, they are like uh, three type of pricing tiers in nutshell, but it can be divided further. Okay, so let's suppose let me talk about the name of these pricing tier first. It could be shared. Okay, it could be dedicated. Okay, or it could be isolated. So your pricing tier could be shared for your dev or testing purpose. It could be dedicated for your application, or it could be isolated for the your application which require an isolated compute power. Okay. Now your shared could be of two types, free and shared. There are like two kind of pricing tiers, free and shared. Both have shared compute. Okay. So in case of free and shared, app runs on the same Azure VM as other app services apps, including apps of the other customers. These tiers allocate CPU quotas to each app to run on the shared resources. So if you need to understand the difference between these three, shared same VM apps apps are running on the same VM, including other customers. And CPU quotas are assigned to your applications to work upon. In dedicated, apps in same plan is running on the VM, on the same VM. Okay, or share the same compute resources. All right. And if I talk about isolated, it is like isolated tier. Let me, come on, what's wrong? Isolated tier runs dedicated Azure VMs on dedicated Azure Virtual Network. So it's dedicated VM on dedicated VNet. It provides network isolation on top of compute isolation to your apps. Okay, and it provides the maximum scale out capabilities. If I talk about the dedicated here, your apps in the same app service plan running on the same VM, but then on the next VM it could be the someone else services are running. For example, in this one, someone else service are running on the same VM, but in isolated, no one else. It's only your dedicated virtual network or network isolation and compute isolation both are provided. Okay, network and compute isolation. Okay, now in shared we have two types of tiers, free and shared. Okay, and in dedicated we have three types of tiers: basic, standard, and premium. Okay, higher the tier, the more VM instances are available to you for a scale out, of course, and the other capabilities would be there. Okay. All right. Now, each tier also provide a specific subset of app service features. Okay. Let's talk about those. And everything would be clear once we go on the Azure portal and we'll create our demo web app for the beginning. Things would be clear for sure. Okay, now as per these pricing tier or these plans, there are other services that gets distributed. Okay, as per the plan. You may have you may have to choose the plan as per your demand. For example, if you need a custom domain, you need to select the app service plan which supports the custom domain feature, which supports the other options. For example, you want auto scaling, you want certificates like TLS and SSL, your backups or traffic manager integration, the things like that. It depends on the what kind of service plan you are running your web app on. Okay, so things like let me write down few uh, features like custom domain. Okay, like TLS and SSL certs, like auto scaling, like deployment slots, which is very good option, backups, traffic managers, things like that. Okay, good. All right, let's understand the scaling for shared and the other pricing tier that we have. Okay, so for free and shared, an app receives CPU minutes. Okay, so if you're running your application in free and shared, it will receive CPU minutes. Okay, and cannot scale out because it, as you can see, it is moving this way. Cheapest, and then you're paying more for getting the more features available. The features we talked about here, auto scaling is one of them. For free and shared, there is no scale out. Okay, but apart from that, if you choose any other app service plan where auto scaling is supported, in that scenario, okay, if you have multiple apps running, then at the back end, the compute resource that you have opted for, the app service plan that you opted for, would be taking care of all the web apps which are running in this plan. Okay, so it is like if the plan is configured to run 5 VM instances, then all apps in the plan run on all 5 instances. If the plan is configured for auto scaling, then all apps in the plan are scaled out together based on auto scaling settings. Okay, so that's how the auto scaling works. If you are running a single web app, then single web app would get the benefit of the auto scaling. And if you're running multiple apps, it doesn't matter whether the other app needs it or not, but if one of the apps need it, then it will be auto scale because all the apps are running on that VM. Okay, so I think that's all about app service plan, and we will talk about more when we will create the app service plan in the Azure portal, which will actually clear a lot many doubts that you may have or may not. Let's see. Well, thank you for watching and you have a good day.